interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I'm back.
Anywhere you meet me, guaranteed to go down.
I like the way you ride with that booty on me.
It's going down.
Go down while you looking lonely.
It's going down.
Come around and it's all on me.
Anywhere you meet me, guaranteed to go down.
So, new year, new intro. Let's get it. I'm not so sure if I'm going to promise to be a brand new me this year, but my reactions are going to be a lot differently. I'm not going to be doing the most. I'm not going to be doing above and beyond, and I'm going to stay in my lane. That is how 2026 is going to be from here out. Either roll with me or I'm going to roll over you or around you. Whichever is easier.
Okay, she headed to the dance floor and she slowly started popping it. Song like my wrist beats, everybody got to watching it. Girl, you got that secret treasure, I'm gon' put a lock on it. Don't care what they say, I was stupid to be not on it.
Watch me flex. So I am still on my journey, natural anti-inflammatory, and it's going well. I actually left my house, which I very seldom do for those that know me. Went to Tradarius Jose, otherwise known as operating as Trader Joe's, looking specifically for red fleshed apples. No one in the state of Tennessee is selling these type of apples out loud. So I think I'm going to have to do some research online and get them shipped to me because they are the bomb. So I think I've spoken of the health benefits of red fleshed apples, but I know I've probably missed the peak harvest time and being able to access these apples outside of growing them myself, which I will not do because I have a tendency to kill trees. That's my lemon trees. But we're going to see this year. So the list of available red fleshed apples: Pink Pearl, Pink Sparkle, the Lucy Glow, Thornberry, Geneva Crab, Giant Russian, Winter Red Flesh, Almada, and the Mountain Rose are red because of the high levels of anthocyanins, which are known to improve endothelial function, the vessels of your cells. If you have high blood pressure or hypercholesterolemia, this substance acts as a protective. There's a reduction in inflammation and it modulates your immune system. So these apples themselves, not only are they genuinely beautiful apples, they actually are even sweeter and they also have much health benefits. So I went on a search and seizure mission to access these apples. Lucy Glow apples are not even available anymore, or not available consistently. And again, their peak time was like November, mid-December-ish. So you're not going to find them consistently here in Tennessee, but also, especially this time of year, if you do get your hands on some, they're not going to be at the peak sweetness or internally red. So the health benefits, although the health benefits are not any less with which are markedly less with white fleshed apples, the red apples or the apples of color are just more cardioprotective. So I did get the Envy apples, juice them up, mix them with my celery and cucumbers, added a pinch of cracked black pepper and pink salt with a little bit of basil and lime juice for preservation of that green color. And that juice combination was off the chain, and I'm grateful that I actually got the opportunity to make that, and it was very good. Also, I've been growing my own vegetables. I am very fortunate and very blessed to be able to have a garden that I purchased inside, and I was able to harvest 2 servings of bok choy, which I put in the air fryer. And this is just another way I found it accidentally, looking for different ways to prepare it, and just adding just maybe 3 or 4 ingredients, a little bit of garlic, salt, pepper, and olive oil. And you can actually create crispy bok choy. You got to make sure that you heat it low temperature and keep an eye on it so you won't burn up your leaves. And it actually makes a very good chip. And I'm actually excited about potentially making, because looks like I'm producing a lot of kale, and I'm going to produce my kale chips and just see how that rolls. So there's so much. And then adding that, making a proper bowl, adding that as a side for stir-fried chicken cubes. This is the oven roasted chicken from Tyson. Mixing that up with a little bit of truffle oil, black truffle oil, regular mushrooms, shallots, and then probably not adding as much fish sauce as I did. The meal that I just actually had is energy, and I had some just Pellegrino with some lime, and that's what gave me, more so than a cup of coffee, gave me the energy to be able to get the energy to produce this podcast. I'm determined. It's later in the day, but I'm determined to produce all segments of it. And that is the type of meal that is a part of my whole anti-inflammatory protocol. And I'm hopeful that I'll be able to eat more things like that. As I said in an earlier episode, taking that recipe, creating stir fry with seafood, and you don't have to add a whole bunch of stuff. Be careful on how much actual salt or actual fish sauce that you add, because the saline content will actually increase the taste without increasing your sodium intake and your blood pressure. A lot of this stuff is intuitive and actually tastes good. If you're going to grow your own food, you need to come up with inventive ways to actually create it. And that's the word right there.
Slow down the morning, speed up the soul. A world of flavor delivered whole. FB Roasters, your perfect cup, just a click away. Online, on time, oh so bold. Slow down the morning, speed up the soul. A world of flavor delivered whole. FB Roasters, your perfect cup, just a click away. A world of flavor delivered whole. FB Roasters, your perfect cup, just a click away. Roaster's your perfect cup, just a click away.
Welcome back to The Bridge. Today, we are talking about the movie that saved Star Trek. We've got 20th Century Tyrants, questionable parenting choices by Admiral Kirk, and the best space submarine battle in cinematic history. We're diving deep into the Wrath of Khan, from the SETI Alpha Eels to Spock's ultimate sacrifice. I'm your host, Felicia Baxter, and I shall have my revenge! My podcast. Let's get into it, y'all. So I will not be here for the viewing of Wrath of Khan at Soldiers Theater here in Chattanooga, but it appears that I have come up with a way to celebrate this milestone on a singular level, and I'm actually pretty happy with it because I get to watch it on my TV in my climate control house with my own snacks. I don't have to share with anybody else. I don't have to, smell the BO of anybody else. I get to enjoy it the way it was meant to be enjoyed, within the confounds of my own house and my old yuck mouth dog. So, Wrath of Khan. This is a return to the original series regular, apart from some heavy-hitting additions. And there was a lot of facts that I did not know about this as I watched it. We saw Shat come back, Nimoy, DeForest Kelly, Bones, Dr. McCoy, James Doohan, Scotty, Pavlov, Chekhov, Takei, and Nichelle Nichols, and then Ricardo Montalbán and Judson Scott as Jakim. And then I didn't realize that this was Kirstie Alley's film debut before she became the manager of Cheers. B.B. Besh as Carol Marcus, Merritt Buttrick as David Marcus, who actually turns out to be Kirk's son. Paul Winfield, he was Captain Clark Terrell of the USS Reliant, and Ike Eisenmann, the young midshipman and that died as Scotty's nephew. And the fun fact is, I did not realize that William Shatner and Ricardo Montalbán, there was a reported rivalry. They basically filmed the entire film without ever having to be on set together, because William Shatner was filming his TV show. Montalbán was filming his TV show, so they met in the between. That's crazy. And then I followed this watch with The Search for Spock in Star Trek 3, which was actually okay. The graphics were kind of lame. Of course, the storyline was lame. But it was wild that they didn't ask Kirstie Alley to be back, because after Wrath of Khan blew up, she landed as the manager of Cheers. But Paramount was cheap. Why you gonna offer her less than what she actually made in that day's dollars for when she actually debuted on the Wrath of Khan? You trying to cheap out and save a penny, but they ended up having to spend more than what they would have actually paid her. These studios are just crazy. But they almost got. And it's really sad to think that she did not make it back to the Wrath of Khan. She would have been really good. I thought she was kind of lame in the first part, but maybe she would have taken more lessons, and she would have actually been an addition to the search for Spock, because that would have made more sense to me. I asked my AI assistant to break down the Wrath of Khan into acts so I could actually discuss it more coherently. First act was the Ghosts of the Past, the burden of the middle age and the no-win scenario, the Kobayashi Maru. This is where we are introduced to a young and skinny Christy Alley and her failure as that character, Savick, in the simulation. And this establishes the film's central question of how do we or should we face death? And then it's also Kirk's birthday. He's feeling old. He's wearing glasses for retinacs, 5 allergies, and is stuck at a desk job. And then Chekhov and the black Captain Terrell accidentally rediscovers Khan. This sets the revenge plot in motion and reveals the Genesis device, a tool for creation that Khan views as a weapon that he could use. And this is where I came up to certain things. Dr. McCoy and his middle America white person set of ethical, what all of that means. He basically says men playing God, but Khan thought he was God, and he thought that the Genesis device could be used as him to basically consolidate his power. Now, the Enterprise, which has been relegated to the side as a training ship, is ordered to investigate that silence, because when they go on radio silence, it's because Khan takes over the crew and basically puts leeches in the people's ear at SETI Alpha 5. I don't know whether to say this was lame or not, because I watched it twice and then I just basically rolled my eyes and said I ain't watch this no more. This was this whole Sins of the Father, this is the second part that I started watching. This is Khan cripples the Enterprise in a surprise attack, and Kirk is caught reading some 18th century Italian instead of following protocol. And then Scotty's nephew stays at his station, and they basically say this over and over again as he died in sickbay. I didn't get that. That was dumb. Then they basically roll up on the regular one where all the scientists are slaughtered, and he discovers Carol Marcus and the son David that he didn't know he had. So basically, he is every man baby daddy in the 24th century. And then she basically says he ain't shit, but I don't care because I'm a doctor. And she has this son who don't look anything like him, but I'm like, okay, whatever. And then they're at the nebula, a different time, I guess. And then they have the submarine battle. Because both ships are blind, the static of the nebula basically messes with the monitors, and so they can't see. But Kirk basically still outmaneuvers the genetically engineered Ricardo Montalbán's character Khan, because Khan is stuck in two-dimensional thinking. I'm like, okay, this is stupid again, but okay, whatever. Kirk baits Khan to go into the nebula and basically strips him of the technological advantage and forcing a battle of wits. And Kirk, who is just every white man's wet dream, outmaneuvers the genetically engineered Khan. Yeah, that's believable, but okay, y'all. So then the final sacrifice is while beaten and dying, Khan activates the Genesis device as a suicide vest to take Kirk with him. However, the Enterprise can't escape the blast radius because the warp core is flooded with radiation. Spock realizes the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. He enters the lethal radiation chamber to fix the engines because his Vulcan constitution withstood it, but basically it fried him into preserving him. So he basically dupes McCoy, transfers his consciousness to him like datum. And then they basically, instead of taking him back to Vulcan, just like his father said, which basically sets up Star Trek 3, the movie, Spock dies and Kirk understands what it means to face death without cheating the system. That's how he won his Kobayashi Maru, because I think he cheated. And then at his Spock's funeral on the newly formed Genesis planet, but I think that's a kind of mistake with AI. They basically launch him into space. And then Kirk feels young again. He faced the one thing he always tried to avoid, which was loss. But he ended up losing one of his best friends. One of the other things that I basically was kind of taking a deeper dive in is to the Project Genesis. Project Genesis was basically terraforming on crack. It was developed by Carol Marcus and her son to create a process where they could take a dead world, moon, or some other lifeless planet and then instantaneously transform it into a lush, Earth-like paradise capable of sustaining life. This Genesis effect, it worked on a subatomic chain level, and it basically dematerializes all existing matter into that around the blast zone of the Genesis torpedo, and then it reassembles the matter into pre-programmed organic structures: soil, water, atmosphere, or plant life. It basically accelerates evolution. Of course, there's a problem, because man shouldn't be playing God, and of course it was going to be unstable, and that's exactly what it was. This became an ultimate weapon, because once you assume that there already is no life on the planet, and then you add trees, you basically wipe out existing inhabitants, replacing them with some new unstable matrix. Same thing they tried to do with the First Nation people here. That's why this goes very much great with my Osceola's Revenge. 250 years of failed assimilation, and then the First Nation gets the last laugh with generational wealth, because they used the same rules of capitalism against the basic people that were trying to make them impoverished. They tried to wipe them out and force assimilation by them stupid Indian schools. And then they basically tried to then force them onto reservations, and then making them dependent on the government through welfare, and then taking the welfare away. But then again, there's God. You can't treat people dirty and expect to get away with it. So, another thing that I asked, what was the issue with Project Genesis? It was basically, it skipped too many steps. Traditionally, you send robots to melt the Martian ice caps or crash comets into the surface. and then takes about 3 to 1,000 years to get a breathable atmosphere. But Genesis, you send in a torpedo, and in a wave within a minimum of hours, you get oceans, breathable air, and fully grown forests. This happens on the subatomic level, basically subatomic restructuring, and the man doesn't understand what that basically entails. And then you basically overwrite the natural laws of nature. That's why it couldn't work. There's a whole bunch of iconic going back and forth about who said what for who. But I think to end with the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, that basically is timestamp 1 hour and 33 minutes into it when he enters that radiation, when Spock decides to enter that radiation chamber. And also, I just want to basically, the guy that actually played Scotty's nephew was actually the son of one of Scotty's friends in real life. That was actually, they had to redo a lot of those things because they were so bloody. But what they ended up with, I thought was great. And also playing God, again, namby-pamby, Mayflower descendant bullshit. McCoy famously argues that mankind has no business rearranging the universe to suit their needs. He immediately recognizes that the device that can create life can also annihilate it. McCoy says Genesis isn't a garden, it's a doomsday machine disguised as a greenhouse. He wasn't so far from that. At minute 29:40 seconds, Genesis, it's the life from the lifeless. Dear God, do you think we're ever going to learn? We're playing God and we're not even very good at it. Well, that's kind of true. But then Noonien Singh, who is a riff on Data's daddy, he didn't actually hate the idea of Genesis. He hates the idea that the Federation had it. He wants it as the ultimate high ground. He's a conqueror. He realizes that if he possessed the device, he could hold entire sectors of space hostage. Give me what I want, or I'll reformat your home planet. That's kind of crazy. Khan was a prince of Earth during the eugenics war. He sees Genesis as the tool he needs to rebuild his empire. He got too big for his britches, so he had to die. He wants to take it specifically because it belongs to Kirk's people. Stealing Kirk's greatest scientific achievement is a way to humiliate his rival. And then Carol Marcus, I really don't care about her. And then I didn't understand the wardrobe choices because they were on some space scavenger shit. And again, Paramount being cheap, they wanted to give 20th century thermal suits and ship supplies that they look hard, but they also look sexy. And no, that chest was actually Ricardo Montalbán's chest because he was ripped in real life, even though he was 62 years old. I guess the juice and being on Fantasy Island agreed with him because that was not a prosthesis. That was his real chest, y'all. So I'm just saying. And also, all of it was made up. They didn't have a beef. And even before he died, they basically said, Kirk's or William Shatner's time on T.J. Hooker and then Montalbán was on Fantasy Island, it's because their shooting schedule did not allow them to be together, but they did not have a rivalry. They both actually had mad respect for each other. So, with that said, the actual ending to such a great commentary is me posing on SETI Alpha 5 with a smile and just being who I actually want to be. As the sun sets over the Genesis planet, we're reminded that death is not the end but a new beginning. The Wrath of Khan taught us that you can't cheat the no-win scenario forever, but you can face it with dignity and a few good friends by your side. Thank you for joining me at the bridge today. We'll be back next time to search for a certain Vulcan as well as any other thing Star Trek related on our celebration of Star Trek 60. Until then, I have been and always shall be your host. Live long and prosper. See y'all. My apologies to Henry Mancini, but a riff on the Pink Panther theme is in alignment with a podcast segment dedicated to a fictional PI and all about true crime, or fictional crime in this case. Don't you think? So in another episode in how people keep trying to rip off other people, but this ain't just ordinary rip off. This is gargantuan proportions, and they're actually naming names and pulling in the banks. Check it out. A proposed class action complaint in California accuses J.P. Morgan Chase of enabling $328 million crypto Ponzi scheme run by Goliath Ventures. They allegedly raised funds for more than 2,000 investors between 2023 and 2025. These Chase accounts served as an exclusive vehicle for misappropriating investor funds, including about $328 million crypto scheme, and then another $253 million that was deposited directly into JP Morgan's account during that period, with $123 million transferred to Goliath wallets, of course, maintained on Coinbase. The supposed anonymity serves as kind of like a cloak for people to operate illicit schemes. This is an example of that. This class action, and it's so crazy because Coinbase and the crypto community is always talking about the anonymity, the decentralized, but they're being pulled, but the centralized banking, conventional banking, is being pulled into their shenanigans. Isn't that crazy? Because they provided the infrastructure that allowed the Ponzi scheme to happen. This was in U.S. District Court of Northern District of California. The lawsuit brought by Robbie Steele on behalf of more than 2,000 investors claims the bank served as the sole institution for Goliath during this period. He lost, 650,000 large cash and 340 withdrawn from his retirement account after paying associated taxes. This company, Goliath, marketed joint venture agreements to investors nationwide, promising profits from cryptocurrency trading strategies and digital asset arbitrage, the complaint says. In reality, they are alleged to operate it as basically a Ponzi scheme, using new investor funds to pay earlier investors. Christopher Delgado was arrested. He was the CEO of Goliath, and he was just arrested in February. According to this filing, bank records showed that approximately $253 million was deposited into Goliath's JP Morgan Chase account at between that time, and then they transfer out to Coinbase under a partnership that they basically finalized. So between Coinbase and JP Morgan, they were strategic partners in organizing this the cryptocurrency. That's why poor Jamie Dimon looks so haggard, because he had this nonsense, almost $1 billion in shenanigans waiting in the wings, and the U.S. economy was the last thing on his mind. He knew, I think he and the higher ups knew of this craziness that was going on, because the government pays long game. And look, they've been in operation and this has been going on between 2022 and 2025. So they have, and then once they got knowledge of it, then they actually have to respond. How do you explain how over $300 million just goes up in smoke? And they're basically, this lawsuit blames them in large part. And that's the other thing. Anybody that actually got paid some type of profit from this scheme, they're going to get sued for clawback. Oh, this is a mess. They allege that Chase ignored numerous indicators of fraud that basically the anti-money laundering system should have detected. It's required that financial institutions maintain due diligence programs and files of suspicious activity when transactions suggest possible fraud or money laundering. I think if you move around over 300 million large, that should have basically flagged somebody somewhere. I'm sure heads are rolling. And this is some public statements that Jamie Dimon date back to 2017. Chase knew and publicly announced the frequent fraud and financial schemes associated with cryptocurrency. When he called Bitcoin a fraud through 2024 remarks at the World Economic Forum, describing Bitcoin as a pet rock. Wow. But then they wanted in because they saw an opportunity for the bank to make money. But they getting caught up in the fraud that they basically refuted. They note that Chase uses Actimize, an artificial intelligence and data analytics software platform, to automatically review transactions against customer backgrounds and compliance red flags. Despite these systems, the bank continues servicing Goliath's accounts. Their own systems fail. Wow. Chase had more than just these red flags. Chase had actual knowledge of Goliath's cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme, as is the only logical inference from all the red flags that Chase ignored. Yet Chase continued to aid and abet Goliath anyway. The lawsuit asserts 5 claims for relief: aiding and abetting fraud, aiding and abetting breach of fiduciary duty, unjust enrichment, all them fees I'm sure they collected, negligence, violation of California's unfair competition law. The plaintiff seeks class certification, compensatory damages, disgorgement of fees and benefits received by Chase, restitution, and other relief. Holy crap. The complaint demands a jury trial on counts triable by jury. Yeah, I'm going to need to follow up on that because that case sounds like a doozy in the making. Man, they get ready to run y'all pockets, Chase. Buckle up, Buttercup. So, this has been a wild couple of weeks. I've had to initiate a grievance process for my niece. Then everybody's been talking about the America's Next Top Model and the scam that is the monster that was Tyra Banks. And while I was watching, I watched the original one on the documentary, and I agree. The show was about to Tyra Banks' ego, and I agree with one of the commentators. Instead of her just getting therapy, she created a franchise that was shown in over 43 countries as a get back to the fashion industry that treated her light bulb head incorrectly. She basically lied. It was a cultural icon, juggernaut, but what she did to those women did not equate to what she was lying about. She wasn't rooting for anybody. She was enriching herself. The follow-up documentary on E didn't give any new information. It just basically supported what had already been said and suspected. And they had old hatchet-faced looking Janice Dickinson, who would, in her youth, she was a beautiful woman, but years of drug abuse and botched surgeries, she looks hard now. It's like she's a ghost of who she once was. And old Tyra Banks and her hog head, I don't know. I say all of that to say is because I was watching that and it was a part of E's Dirty Rotten Scandals episode. And I came upon the Dr. Phil. There was a lot I didn't know. That basically was what documentaries are all about. Basically, it was a bunch of new information. For example, how is it that he earns the right to be called doctor? He does have his PhD. That is to be sure. Dr. Phil didn't come in the zeitgeist until he and a previous company he had helped Oprah Winfrey win the lawsuit against her by the Texas or the U.S. Beef Organization. He basically helped them pick, it was a trial by jury, helped her and her team create such a lawsuit of defense that basically sent them back to the stables with the tails between their legs in a literal sense and figuratively. But he was a licensed practitioner up until he allowed his license to expire back in 2006. And this tidbit becomes very relevant as the whole premise of the show has come to light. For several years, the Boston Globe and some investigative reporters, it's been known that nobody was helped by the Dr. Phil show except for Dr. Phil and his underfed wife's bank account. None of it. When he allowed his license to expire, he effectively moved out of the jurisdiction of state and medical and psychological boards. There was no regulatory oversight. Because he was no longer a licensed psychologist, even though that was always said in the press, the California Board of Psychology, where he recorded this show, had no legal authority to discipline him for his conduct on the show. Was it therapy or was it entertainment? It was entertainment, because this distinction allowed him to bypass all the strict ethical codes like do no harm and patient confidentiality that govern actual clinical practice. You can't tell me bringing a rape victim who was molested by her brother and them on the show together, and he gives detailed accounts of how he molested her at 11 years old. You can't tell me nobody said anything. That's crazy to me. Do no harm and patient confidentiality. They allowed him to operate for 20 years doing this mess. Everybody that was on the show were literally coerced into signing these waivers. They had these documents stated that they were receiving advice from an individual, not clinical therapy from a doctor, which protected production from malpractice lawsuits. You can't say he's giving you advice, you can take it or not. He ain't licensed, so definitely this is not some type of practice. They were basically given the treatment of rock stars and then left to pick up the pieces after the show dumped them. And then there's no recourse to sue because you signed these airtight waivers. There was this whole promotional, and the reason why I'm talking about this in my segment on scams, etc., because there's a whole kickback referral loop. Under the guise of promotion, alleges that the show referred guests to specific treatment centers in exchange for the show's promotion or other business arrangements. There was a broker that was actually a family friend with no clinical background that he received huge kickbacks in cash just to get the show to actually, as a go-between, to get the show to refer the patients to them, to get these other promotions that the show would actually do. But then when that became too messy, when he says, this is Dr. Phil McGraw says he found out about it, he was told to stop. When he didn't, he was fired. But this is after he had already made millions for himself as well as possibly millions for the show. Okay. When they were bringing out patients in body bags, the show was still benefiting and still referring people to these types of places. Let's see. There was also some other allegations. There was a VR conflict back in virtual reality conflict back in 2018, where I think was this patient? It was a patient portal, which featured the show. They had to purchase the virtual reality product launched by McGraw, blurring the lines between clinical referral and a business deal. The whole thing was just so messy. There was so much re-traumatization experienced by this guest, from young children to adults that had severe addictions. It was very troubling part of this show's legacy. Todd Herzog alleged that the show facilitated their substance abuse, leaving alcohol in the dressing room and ensuring they appeared messy or unstable on cameras. There was also the Catch Me Outside girl. She was actually referred to a troubled teen that was referred to a facility, the Turnabout Ranch, that had allegations of abuse. The show ignored red flags of abuse for the sake of dramatic transformation narrative, but we know she's still out here rapping, so I don't know how long it lasted. But what she probably underwent at that ranch was arguably, I'm sure, was against the law. In the United States, TV is mostly a self-regulated, depending on the reality content, as long as the guests sign consent forms and the show doesn't violate criminal laws. The trauma is often viewed legally as a voluntary byproduct of appearing on a reality program. That's why this program is just that. It's reality TV. It only helped the advertisers, Phil McGraw, and of course his underfed, over Botox wife. A lot of the former guests did file suit, but what the legal strategy they use is something called anti-slap motions, basically strategic lawsuits against public participation. Basically, they allege free speech on a public platform, and there was usually, they say, there's no malice or negligence, given in the entertainment nature of the show. One of the troubled teens, Hannah Archuleta, alleges and sued McGraw back in 2021, alleging that the staff pressured her parents to send her to that Turnabout Ranch in Utah, and she was sexually molested by a staffer. She claimed the show was negligent in vetting and referral process. The case was dismissed in 2022 because the court granted that anti-slap motion, ruling the show's recommendations were a part of protected free speech and the show was not legally responsible for the actions of third party of that facility. And then there was Todd Herzog. Back in 2017, he basically alleged that producers left vodka in his dressing room and gave him Xanax before he went on stage, leading to when he basically had to be almost carried on set. Despite the claims and the public outcry, there was never any successful malpractice or personal injury lawsuit. And everything was denied, and the case went away. Then there was 2 women that participated in a tolerance exercise. They sued for fraud and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The case was actually dismissed by a judge in 2011 when the court found that the women had signed comprehensive liability releases and were aware they were participating in reality-style entertainment program. Then there's Leah Rothman. who was director of the Dr. Phil's show, and he was sued for false imprisonment and wrongful termination. She alleged that McGraw locked 300 employees in a room, screamed at them, and threatened them in an attempt to find out who was leaking information to the press. That was actually settled out of court. And then when he left Paramount, and then his next venture, Media Street, became embroiled in a bankruptcy court. McGraw actually deleted the incriminating text messages relating to the bankruptcy filing, accusing him of a gangster move to avoid paying creditors. This resulted in a court-order liquidation of certain assets, though McGraw's team is currently appealing that. It's basically hard to sue because of all the release forms are just so comprehensive, airtight. They say you're not a patient, you assume the risk, and there's also arbitration in private. So this all just screams the result of unregulated reality TV, and how these people like McGraw, like Tyra Banks, make millions and sometimes billions of dollars. That's why Tyra Banks can afford to sell ice cream in Australia now. She's already done the damage, and there's no real retribution. Several lives have been ruined, but she's sitting pretty. Same thing with Dr. Phil. I'm sure he's going to return like a roach and be saved, or he's not really a failed reality star, because is that such a thing? Because they basically promote not reality when you think about it. He hasn't really been in practice since 2006. Everything he does is for entertainment value and really is not to help anybody. What kind of angle is he going to come up with next? That he's going to sell a handful of beads to the public? I don't know. But I'm not going to be waiting for it. I'm going to just wait to see what next shoe drops in the legal sense, trying to deal with the unreality of reality TV. And the only reason why I say this is because I'm a board certified doctor. I don't like people having to unnecessarily suffer. But when you're suffering at the hands of somebody that's absolutely lying, that to me is traumatic, it's horrible, and there's no sense in it at all. And I think that also is why I'm kind of revamping my show. There are other shows that does a scene by scene recap of reality TV. Reality with the King, Dustin Ross, Claudia Jordan. There's a lot of people that actually do this for that is a part of their platforms. And if you want to actually get those play-by-plays, you can actually go over there. I'm not going to waste my time, or continue to utilize my time, I should say, in recapping those unless something just dramatically pops up. And that's why I'm probably going to have, after this next segment, my opinion on Real Housewives, Beverly Hills, and the Bell Collective, which should be Real Housewives of Jackson, because that's what it actually has become. It has the basically same script form and messiness as the Real Housewives series, but I digress. But most of going forward, my show is going to be concentrating on just basically scams, Star Trek, and what I'm reading, because that's what I'm interested in. And that basically what has been the format of the show since its inception back in 2018. 7 years, y'all. 8 years now. I want to do better and just focus in on the things that really interest me, because that's where I think my creativity shines through. Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of unholy amount of information, ungodly information that's coming out on the reality TV world. And what better yet of using the instrumental of unholy as I record on this glorious Sunday morning. The telling of stories. So this is probably one of the few times I'm going to talk about reality TV, in particular Real Housewives, or even one of like Bell Collective or Huntsville, unless something comes up before the Monday Night Live, that because I think Carlos King and his friends, Dustin, Blue, Claudia Jordan, all of them do a much better job about breaking this show down. Beverly Hills is not so much, because this past week, Carlos King said that Jansen was feeling under the weather. I don't know if she had gotten some fillers or a facelift in preparation for when the cameras go back up on OC, because it was just leaked by Up and Adam, I think, that she's actually coming back as a friend of or in some other capacity. So she's probably getting ready for her close-up. And also, it looks like one of her sons is also getting married. So she's probably getting a refresh for that. Don't know. Really don't care. One of the things I will say about Beverly Hills, it's gotten boring again. The women are only clocking in to show up for their scenes because it appears that you get paid per episode. All of them are bored, with the exception of Rachel Zoe, who looks undernourished, and she has a lot of filler in her face, because I think she has the same issue as Caught in the Act, Tammy Roman, where she's lost a tremendous amount of weight and she's lost the elasticity. So if she were to lean forward, all of that filler or her face would deflate. Because I keep looking at her arms and she literally looks cachectic. But back in the day and still currently, she's still respected in the industry. Even though she tries to cover up her cachecticness in caftans and ill-fitting Versace, she still is underweight. Just saying. But the only one that they keep picking on that may have some Jen Shaw level fraud going on, but we won't know because Amanda in her Botox face ain't giving us anything. They just keep picking and picking and picking and picking. And it seems like they're getting ready to blow up that girl's spot. I don't know. All I do know is I need to see something else. Dorit Kimberly's righteous anger about the state of her divorce, and now it is revealed that her house is in foreclosure because PK nor she was paying the back mortgage. So I don't know. They should work something out before it actually truly does go into foreclosure. And she needs every last dime that she can get. she needs somebody in her corner and her team that's going to show her either she going to manifest it or she going to have to come up off the cash, whichever goes first. Because what we're seeing now, she can't afford to go on pause because that's what it's feeling like. This past week, it revealed that Real Housewives of New Jersey is coming back. I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch that because the last time it was on now, almost 3 years ago, Dolores, who seems to still be on some form of GLP-1, Melissa Gorga and Teresa Giudice are the only three that are coming back. I don't know who else is coming back, but I'm not going to watch Teresa and her sister-in-law not talk to her. I don't want to watch Teresa's brother try to be a housewife when nobody didn't ask him for that. I don't have time for a lot of this stuff because it's the same thing that now is a good washover to the Real Belles of Jackson, because that's what Glendale is doing now. This is the problem with Glendale. Glendale keeps saying that he's a traditional man, but he keeps acting like a bitch. I can't. And what's his name? He's very toxic. Latrice's husband, Clint, I don't know his name. But he really is a traditional man. He also seems to be successful as far as restaurant and real estate. And her husband knows her place, and she's only going to push it but so far. And it was wild because I think there was it just seemed weird and out of place, but she talks a big game. But the reality of when Latrice goes back to her house is completely different. Carlos King said something that I found interesting. He basically said, this is referring to Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the women have now relegated themselves to colleagues where they clock in to work, but none of them are actually friends. I don't see Sutton Brown as friends with what's her name? She's really funny and a squeaky voice. There's nobody on this set that seems to have a genuine friendship anymore. People are just clocking in because they need to check to a certain extent. I think Sutton Strack is more to it than her husband getting the marriage expunged from the Catholic Church. I think he's making an effort to basically stop paying her alimony since the marriage never took place. I think that, what's her name? Erica Jane, who I respect as a badass, she only is going to be able to show up enough because she has so much going on as far as her ex-husband bankruptcy lawyers are now coming after her with the money he spent on her through the marriage. That's crazy to me. Bose is concentrating on or not going through IVF, but it seems like her and her big-jawed, lower-jawed boyfriend, they cool. And she's concentrating on her beautiful daughter as she navigates senior year and then goes off to college. It just seems that, and then Kyle is doing her thing, her vegan running, etc. And it has not been revealed, or she has not shared with the audience what really truly is going on with her life beyond the good parts, like her daughter getting married, how the non kind of relationship she has with her estranged husband, with his fine self. I don't know. But it looks like a couple of people really need to go on pause or become friends of if you're not going to reveal any details of your life, because right now it's just getting boring. How y'all going to be in Florence, one of the most beautiful cities in the Western Hemisphere, art, food, fashion, and y'all are arguing about non-existent people being in cults, former cult members? I think that's dumb. Why? What about being in the moment and sharing your experience in the moment in this beautiful villa while you're steaming? Why are y'all concentrating and looking at beating up this girl? Who's only the one that is being the realest out of all of y'all. And then I switch to this show, The Bells Collective. This is one of the reasons why I am reminded that this is entertainment, but I'm not being entertained. This is only a portion of these people's real life. Why is Glendale so interested in making a moment? Why did he basically think him showing his entire behind was going to prove to his wife that he should be involved in every aspect of her being, when all it's going to do is mess up her bag? What does showing up and being supportive for someone like him in Jackson look like? Because this is not it. This is you trying to get banned from set. This is you trying to catch a charge for domestic violence. This is you look like somebody that is going to mess up your wife's bag, because nobody's going to work with her if you going to show up. Just because y'all share locations and y'all actually share a house doesn't mean you have unrestricted access to what she does, because that's her thing. Are you doing this because you want to keep her from leaving you? All you're doing is pushing her to leave. This is for Glendale. You are searching for a way to make a moment and to become viral for all the wrong reasons. It's making you look stupid and it's making you look unlikable. And what your intent is to keep your wife is completely opposite from the effect. And only a dumbass would keep along this lines, because this ain't it, bruh. You basically doing all of this to prove, she wants to leave me, she wants me. So you are making it very easy for her to leave you. Why do that when you don't have to? You can be supportive, and that can make you, and that a silent strength is what she actually is going to need in this next episode of her life. Either you can roll with her, but if you're going to be obstructed, she's going to be moved out of the way. Another storyline, but nobody wants to go through that mess, and that's what exactly you're going. And I'm going to see, because this is all I see personally. I see a whole bunch of people trying to make a moment, and all you did is get punked by a dude that looks like Dora Explorer with a hormone problem and a backpack. Boy, bye. I'm tired of all of y'all. I'm tired of these people. It's obvious that there's a big rift in a relationship. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about any of this to only know about the messy parts that they are showing on screen. I'm not even entertained by this anymore. I actually think that this dude is spiraling. And it is obvious that he ain't listening to nobody. He basically is going to blow up his spot in an effort. He keeps saying, I want to save my marriage. But you're doing all the exact opposite things. The bullying, the being obstruction, demanding that you have access to everything that has to do with her business. Yeah. It would be different if she was safe in the relationship. But dude, she don't even want to sleep with you anymore. So what are you fighting for? Are you fighting for what was when you were the primary breadwinner? Because that obviously now in this dynamic, that doesn't exist. Do you want her to go back to making you feel that you were the one and only? Back the day that she was truly a housewife? Because again, that dynamic doesn't work anymore. So what are you going to need to do to change? And is it already too late? And because you are probably know it probably is, that's why you're wilding out? This makes great TV, but it's also very stupid. The dynamics that we're being shown on TV is an extreme microcosm, I'm sure, of these people's life. But what is it actually doing? Some people say, no, we actually had major problems or major rifts before we even got on reality TV. And it was just magnified by it because we were under the camera and the TV lights. This is, I think, is a very good but very sad example of that. Because we're seeing really the demise of a relationship and the potential demise of a family unit, because they do have a beautiful son who seems to be successful. But this nonsense getting ready to blow up all of their spot. The only positive thing is Latrice and Latisse are actually finally sitting down. And they basically had to get to this point because they knew if they didn't get it together, it was going to mess up all of their guarantee bag. Because, again, them pushing up and her calling bitches and hoes and stuff, that wasn't a good look either. They had to get it together for the collective. Now, Carrie, I'm not sure, not seeing enough. Tambra, not sure, not seeing enough. And she got a whole child that we haven't even seen her co-parent with the baby daddy. I don't know. I do know I'm very much interested in, she was married to the pigtail dude, got the daughters that look exactly like a combination of him with his flat face and her. This woman is an Amazon. She's beautiful. And I am looking forward to learning more about her. Her life is one of intrigue. We met her when she was still trying to grieve and get over her son who was murdered. We went back to the house. She also had a stroke after her accident. She had a car accident. She actually recovered from that. Her life is a never-ending storyline with so many dynamics. Why are we watching this instead of Glendale act crazy? Because they said something at the start when the cameras picked back up that Glendale is basically doing all of this for the camera, when he basically, I can see him, the months that the camera was down, he hardly even talked to his wife. So now him trying to push up and fight and fight and fight. What was he doing when the cameras were down, though? Absolutely nothing. So all of this seems to be for a show. This is called the Bell Collective, not the Male Collective. He's trying too hard. He need to go back to whatever oil rig he was working on before and get his life that way. Go back to work, bruh, because this ain't it. I'm tired of Glendale's show, Act the Fool on Camera. I know it makes great TV, but it's kind of old. The storyline of him, the Glendale effect, yeah, it's getting old. Y'all need to find something else to film. You can take the girl out of the hood, but you can't take hood music out the girl. But I'm going to end this with a word, just as I started this podcast. Do or do not do. There is no try. And that's a word from Yoda. I hope I have conveyed just how much fun I have had in creating this podcast. I've got my mojo back. Just set your intention or reset your intention. It could be daily if necessary. Mine is peace. No mental dumping over here. If I'm acting like I'm not listening, I'm probably not. I'm not your therapist. I'm not a therapist. Keep the crazy to yourself, child. You do you and leave me be. The sooner you figure that ish out, the happy you will be. So this is what I want to convey in this podcast. And that wraps another of FAFFO has a fro. Join me next time as I throw shade and point out the shade and simply have fun. Y'all have a great new year. What, y'all? What?